Hey folks, welcome to another VR related video. I'm not going to be jumping into a headset today. I just wanted to kind of sit back and reflect on where I feel personally we are in the virtual reality industry today. I've had a lot of conversations with people lately about new hardware coming to market, new software coming to market, and there's a lot of buzz, a lot of excitement, a lot of hype, if you will, around certain titles, certain hardware, certain things. And I just want to kind of do my own personal level set and give my opinion, but also kind of the direction that my channel will be taking and has been taking since day one, really, over the next few months and years as some of these things come out into the market. I want to start out by talking about hardware and where we are with hardware today. With the Oculus DK1, I kind of equate that to the Atari 2600, a 4-bit system that got you into video games, and in this case, into virtual reality, but it wasn't perfect. The DK1 was a 3DOF system with a low resolution, kind of a bulky headset, but it got people started. It got people into development. Primarily, that's what DK stands for, is development kit. And some of the games that started development back with the DK1 and the later DK2 are just now starting to reach their final fruition and get close to release. And those are the games that I think are going to propel at least the VR gaming side of things forward in the next couple of years. Now we move on from the 4-bit platform to the NES era, or Sega Master System era. And I would say that that 8-bit era really led to what we see today with PC VR. So whether you have an Oculus DK2 or you have a Vario Aero or anything in between, I really feel like the experience that you have when you're using applications or playing games isn't really revolutionarily different between any of those platforms. They all serve the same purpose, regardless of resolution, regardless of how things work. They're all still positioned with the same types of titles. You can still run pretty much everything, with the exception of a few titles, on an HTC Vive with Vive wands. In some cases, you can still play some of those things on the Oculus DK2 that you can also play on the more advanced headsets. In fact, in some cases, Valve Index controllers aren't as functionally supported as those wands that were one of the first modern hand controllers that we had. Of course, you can look back even further to the Razer Hydra and the SixSense Stem, and those are actually just as supported as Vive wands using a Steam VR for Razer Hydra driver. So even the older generation VR PC hardware still works as it has since day one. The gameplay and functionality is not that different. Yes, you might have to play on lower graphic settings, but when I talk about generational leaps and when I talk about where I feel we're at, I still kind of lump in all of PC VR in that 8-bit era, if that makes sense. Then we move on to standalone VR. And standalone VR, I think, is really at the point today where we're at the Game Boy era. Game Boy was also an 8-bit console, and Game Boy had graphical limitations. You see where I'm going with that? So while Game Boy was an 8-bit platform, and you still had those gameplay experiences similar to the NES or the Sega Master System, there were graphical limitations. People complained about it being underpowered, similar to what we have with the Quest, the Vive Focus, etc. today. New hardware is coming to market. Do I think we're going to move into that 16-bit era? No. I think these are really the Game Boy Color at this point. Whether it's the Cambria device, which is going to be more targeted away from games, so I probably shouldn't consider that one. The Pico 4, which has color pass-through as a feature, or any of the other devices that are going to be coming to market in the near future, because there will be plenty. I'm sure the market's going to be flooded with different headsets and different options, and I'm excited for that. But it's not going to give you that radically different experience from the Game Boy you have at home. So whether you have a Quest 2, whether you have a Quest, whether you have a Rift, whether you have a Vive, any of those headsets is still going to be just as good once these new ones come out. Now, from a comfort perspective, from a resolution perspective, possibly from a field of view perspective, sure, there's going to be advancements, but those are all iterative advancements. And I think that's going to be the case in the next 3 to 5 years. I've seen some of the prototype videos, really good one with Norm from Tested that showed the Mirror Lake prototype from Meta. And I think, that might be the time frame 3 or 5 years from now where we might be starting to talk about what might be the 16-bit era of modern virtual reality. Again, all of that is just a comparison of where we're at today versus where we were at in late 70s and early 80s in the standard flat video game market. Now, is that a bad thing? I don't think so. It hasn't been that long since the Oculus DK1 started shipping to people. So if you look at it from the perspective of where we're at today versus where the early video game market was, I think we're at parity at this point. Should we be excited for the future? Absolutely. I think that the upcoming hardware refreshes are going to be awesome. And the gameplay experiences, even with that old Oculus DK1, are not that different than the ones that we have today. I think it's going to take a major revolution to get a little bit further. But I will say everything's getting more and more iterative and more refined. So we're about to hit the point where software titles catch up with the hardware we've had all along. Those software titles, probably in 2023, 2024, and 2025, are going to be the fully realized software that's been in development since day one of modern VR. And that's what I'm really excited for, is exploring the worlds that those people bring into virtual and augmented and our realities. So that's a little bit about where I think the industry is today. Next, I want to move to the community. I've really focused on following Tokyo Game Show, Gamescom. I went to PAX West in person, and I've also just kind of kept my eyes on what was being said, what was being promoted, what was happening across the VR community as a whole. And I'm not going to name names and I'm not going to give examples, but what I'm seeing is something that's kind of alarming to me still. There's a lot of gatekeeping. There's a lot of everything should be this way because this is what I prefer. I don't think we should follow what one person prefers. I think that if you're building something and I don't like it, that doesn't mean you should stop building it. If you build something and the vocal minority that will reach out and say, I want it to be this way, that doesn't mean you should necessarily change what you're working on. And I think a lot of developers realize that, but I just want to say it outright that I'm seeing a lot of people say, for example, maybe Job Simulator or The Blue aren't good things to show virtual reality newcomers and that they should be thrust into other titles. I think that the earliest titles are still some of the best titles to show off to newcomers, and that can help them to gravitate to more intricate, more involved experiences later on. I don't think that dumping someone into The Walking Dead Saints and Sinners or dumping them into something like Zenith day one as their first ever demo is necessarily the best thing. I can't say that a specific control scheme is better than another. I can't say that having one set of options versus multiple sets of options is better, because this market is going to dictate what's best. And I think that the market should be as open as possible. I think that people should have access to titles that they're comfortable playing or that they're comfortable using on a daily basis for productivity or for other means. I don't think that we should be telling people as a community, that's wrong, don't do that, or don't play that game, it's not good, or don't do this or don't do that. I've tried since day one with my channel to not really give too many opinions. A recent example is a game called Bone Lab that came out just this week. I've struggled with this game because I feel like the game itself is an extremely uncomfortable game for me personally to play. Does that mean you shouldn't play it? No, not at all. It's just, it's not the game that I wanted to highlight. And I have, at least now, shown off the first hour-ish of gameplay that I played with a couple of selective edits. But it's great that people like the game and that people are gravitating to the game. I don't think you should force others to play the game, and I don't think if others have an opinion of the game, whether it's the same as mine or different from mine, that it's wrong. Everybody's entitled to their opinion. What I see, though, is a lot of that gatekeeping and a lot of kind of exclusionary conversations happening. I want VR to be something that's as inclusive to everyone as possible. So whether you have sensitivities to certain content, whether you have actual physical functional disabilities, whether you have a language that is different from my own, I want you to be able to access and enjoy virtual reality. And that's what I've always wanted in virtual reality, is to get as many people into virtual reality as possible in whatever way they feel comfortable. It doesn't matter what I think. It doesn't matter what I do. What I want to do is promote virtual reality in a way that it's as open and as accessible to others as possible. The main point here is, if you find yourself arguing that games shouldn't be a certain way, or applications shouldn't be coming to virtual reality, or anything that's a no, put yourself in the perspective of other users. Maybe for those other users, it's something that would be extremely helpful to them, or it would make the platform more accessible to them. So I'm asking, as a community, let's do better. Let's not gatekeep content. Let's not exclude others from our community. It's extremely important to build this community to be strong and to be inclusive of as many individuals as possible. And we are all individuals. If there's something that you love, I don't want to crap all over it. And if there's something that I enjoy that you don't like, that's cool too. But let's continue to build the virtual reality community as we have been for many years now. Let's bask in the greatness of virtual reality from the past, the present, and into the future. Some things to think about. I'll be back with more content throughout the month of October. It's going to be a crazy busy month for me. I hope you get to enjoy some VR for yourself, and thanks for watching. Bye-bye now.